Okay, everybody, how are you all doing today? We are joined with. Okay, we are joined. I am joined. Okay, I hate this. All right, this is a great start.
You got this, Justin. You got this.
Okay, I am joined by the wonderful Spica. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you so much for having me, man.
No problem, no problem. All right, so this is basically going to be like an interview process. I've talked to multiple people about this, and I'm going to be having podcasts, like the full podcast in on a different channel, and I'm going to be making a different highlight channel for shorts since a lot of people don't have time nowadays. So I think having a short, a little video for like each funny segment or something would be really fun.
Yeah,
And
totally.
yeah, I think that'd be really good. And then I'm gonna start interviewing a lot of other people as well. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy. But yeah. So how are you doing today, Speaker? Let's start with that.
I am having a great day. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of sick of snow where I am. I'm begging that everyone who has like sunny weather will send it my way. But other than that, it's been an amazing day so far.
Yeah, definitely. I live in California, so I see like no snow, and I'm really happy about that. I'm gonna be
Let's
completely honest.
let's trade for a day. You can have my snow and hail for one day, and I'll take your sunshine.
I just love it. I can't live on the East Coast. I don't know why. I just can't. I can't stand the cold. Like if you were to choose a place to live that's either extremely hot or extremely cold, I would live somewhere where it's extremely hot, honestly. I don't like the cold at all. I can't function.
I feel like I'm the brat that wants like the in between. I want that perfect middle ground.
The perfect balance.
Yeah. Like I don't like being too cold, but I would prefer cold over warm just because with cold you can like layer up, but
Mhm.
with like heat, like there's a limit to what you can do when you're overheating.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna start the get to know you segment. So I think a good amount of questions for you, Spica. So,
Oh, oh.
do you mind telling the audience a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, of course. Well, I'm Spica Illustrations. I have been a full-time artist for 2 years. I've been illustrating on social media as of recently, at the beginning of COVID, I would say I've returned back to social media. Um, You can find me over on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And just in general, I like to make art that's really bright and colorful and is a fun way to just express really positive energies. Um, with regards to the art I do, I was self taught. I never personally went to university for art. However, it's been in my family for as long as I can remember. Almost every single person in my family has some artistic touch to them. And so, having that be a part of my life for so long, I think it's just something I naturally lean towards. Um, yeah, that's about it for a basic intro. But I'm also happy to answer like literally any questions. For me personally, if you're wondering my position, I am a head illustrator and artist. I'm in charge of concept art, storyboarding. I am in charge of comic design, character design, backdrops and foregrounds and interface designs for websites.
Okay,
So
that's
da-da-da.
oh, that's a really good introduction. I'm not gonna lie. I probably would have stopped after the first like two sentences. I would have been like, "I'm just the prodigy. I'm a YouTuber." Done.
Honestly, I always feel very stuck on how to introduce myself, to be honest. So I hope it doesn't seem like too long.
Oh no, no, that's perfect. That is perfect. I'm not gonna lie. That is perfect. Okay, so what are your hobbies outside of art?
Oh my gosh. Where do I even start? One of my biggest hobbies is I am a huge outdoorsy person. I love hiking. I'm a huge swimmer. Outside of that, I love to cook and bake. I actually went to school, university wise, for 1 year for baking. Um, let's see. I really love journaling and writing, although I will say I'm the worst person at grammar. So don't rely on me for any grammar. um, and then gosh, I don't know. I love to dip my toes in so many different things. Whether it's like streaming, VTubing, going into just like simple games. I'm not a gamer. I suck at games, but I like to play games with friends. So yeah, I think that's a general of like things I just like to do. I like music, but yeah.
And I think Spica really likes Phasmophobia, isn't that right?
No, I hate phasmophobia, but thank you so much for bringing it up. Between phasmophobia and like burying myself, I think I'd bury myself. Just put me
the
6 feet under. At least then I'll already be done. I don't have to be
the
scared.
jump scare comes after you instead of any one of us. Oh my goodness.
God, I recently actually I got my first Oculus and I was playing VR chat and there's a game in VR chat called For Murder or something like that.
Hmm.
And I was playing with a group of friends and all of them are really good at acting like psychopaths. Like they'll actually
Oh my gosh.
like be like, "Hey, Spica, we're coming. I hear you breathing." And like they'll start creeping around this house and you have to hide from them so that they don't kill you. It's so scary.
Oh my gosh. So, what good or bad habits have you gained over time?
Oh, that's a really good question. Is this like specifically to art?
It could be anything. It could be anything.
Okay. I'm gonna say one. I think this maybe comes from the fact that I'm a Canadian, but I'm really bad at apologizing. I apologize all the time for things that you wouldn't even think need an apology. I'll be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and I know that gets on people's nerves a lot because they'll be like, "Stop apologizing." I'm like, I literally don't even think about it. I just say it. Um, Another thing is I tend to overwhelm myself with a lot of work all at once. So I take on like tons of projects, which means that when it comes to social time, I have very, very minimal social time. Um, so when I do get to hang out with friends, it makes it super special. But at the same time, I always constantly have to decline people's invitations to hang out. Um, let's see, what other habit? When it comes to art, I would say my worst habit is getting too comfortable in any one uh, style. The only reason I say that is because like I believe there's a lot of foundational skills that I'm still building on and I'm still taking courses on. And even if I have a full-time job as an artist, I never feel like I'm fully prepared for the projects or the work I'm given. So um, I think it's a tendency to put a lot of work in front of me and not necessarily as much study time as I would like to have. Um, I don't know, man. Uh, I feel like the more you'll talk to me, the more you'll be like, "Hey, that's a really strange habit." So you'll be able to help me identify some of them.
Oh no, I think we'll figure that out in the next hour or so. We're gonna figure
Oh
that out, and then I
no,
think the chat
gonna get
will.
outed.
And also, feel free, guys. I put all of except your TikTok, unfortunately, because I did not know you had a TikTok. I put
Oh,
all
tell
of
me more. Okay.
Spica's links if you guys want to follow her in the description if you guys want also, and then if you guys want to also ask any questions to Spica, that would be perfectly fine. Just put it in the live chat, and then we can ask her whatever you guys want as long as it's reasonable.
Wholesome. Yeah, let's keep
Yeah,
let's keep it wholesome. Let's not make me say strange things on stream,
yeah,
please.
yeah.
Uh,
So oh wait, what were you gonna say? Sorry.
oh no, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So what advice would you give others that you wished you knew beforehand?
Ooh, depends on the topic, but if it's anything in regards to art or social media, if anyone in the chat is someone who's like an aspiring artist or someone who's like just recently like stepping foot or contemplating stepping foot into the social media realm, um, build your content well ahead of time. I think it's so important to have months worth of content ahead of time. That you can just really enjoy the process, so that when you've used up all of your content and you're able to consistently post, you still have a lot of room to get inspired by things, to just try new things. I think a lot of artists that go into like Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, etc. They always feel like they have to be perfect as soon as they get into social media, and then they post things that maybe aren't necessarily like their best quality, and then they get super discouraged thinking like, oh man, I'm a bad artist, so I can't do this, or oh, like no one notices me, I'm so bad. And it becomes like an identity thing where you identify yourself with your followers. But honestly, the greatest value from being on social media or being a creator in general, I find, is that You got to just love what you're doing and have so much fun with the process of things like falling apart and rebuilding. Because I think the more you experience things not working, the more you start to lean towards the things that really will work for you and will help you build your brand. And in general, I think that helps companies and people that you maybe want to work with in the future notice you more, simply because people want to work with people that are high energy and fun, at least from what I can tell. Um, so I wish I'd known that when I started, because when I started digital art, it was in 2016, and I got so absorbed into DeviantArt and thinking like, oh, I'm not a good artist, oh, I can't do this, and I took a 3-year hiatus from social media because I was just so nervous about like what my impact on my community was, and I got so caught up in this idea of I have to post every day, I have to do all this work, and that standard was unrealistic because I hadn't developed that skill yet. But now that I have that skill and now that I have that understanding, I can take breaks from social media and be completely content. The numbers don't bother me. And I don't say that in any way of like, oh, like to brag about any of that stuff. But I just find that some people get really caught up in how social media affects their lives. And people have a really hard time taking breaks from social media. I think it's so healthy to detox yourself and like put down social media for a while and just not look at it and be completely content with what you're going to do in your daily life, what new hobbies you're going to try, what new things are going to inspire you. Because I think especially mental health is so important. So important when you're in social media.
I definitely agree with that, especially the mental aspect. That's why I'm really surprised a lot of the younger audiences are getting into social media. Like, I think my 6 or 7 year old cousin goes on the weirdest TikToks that I had
Oh no.
no idea. Like, they would show a bunch of, I'd say, questionable things for someone of
Oh no.
his or her age.
Yeah,
Not gonna
yeah,
say
yeah.
who it is, but yeah, it's just very questionable things, and I think you need the mental aspect that you get when you obviously grow older, and I think you just need to mess up a lot, because that's where I
Mm-hmm.
was able to get stronger mentally. I messed up in life way too many times, but I think the thing that my parents especially told me growing up is you always know how to like get up, either if I was like bullied or whatever or some nonsense like that. I always like
Mm-hmm.
found a way to get up, and I think that's like the most important thing, and I definitely do agree with that.
Heck yeah, man. And I think it makes you an inspiration too, because I think that's a wall that a lot of people hit is when you get knocked down, it's the question of like, how do I move on from here? Because some people feel that when they get like knocked down, like, oh, this is the end all be all. But I think being a creator and being in the public eye in any shape or form, the fact that you're willing to like push through that hurdle, I think it only like reinforces like the type of community you build around you too, because then you're gonna like attract people that are gonna have that same drive, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had these spans as well, as where I would feel like, I don't know if you've had this before, Speaker, but you just wake up and then you'd feel like complete crap. And then
Mm-hmm.
you just have this like very sad like mindset, I guess I would say, or depressed mindset. But then, after that day goes by, you need to make sure you're doing something instead of just sitting there, if that makes sense. Like sad, you're like,
Mm.
okay, I need to
Like
get up.
moping in it.
Yeah, you need to like get up and do something about it.
Yeah, I think productivity is the best combatant against like being like negative or being like self-deprecative. I think the moment that you put in any form of action, even if it's like something small, like you make the tiniest goal and you hit that, at least then you're rewiring your mind to say, hey, like I'm okay, I can still do stuff, you know. But I think if you linger in like that mentality, you kind of get into the sense of like, oh, everything's out of my control. Um, and I think some people get too caught up in that feeling of like, oh, I can't control anything, I can't make things work. Where I feel like once you are productive, it's like that extra encouragement to yourself that no one else needs to validate that you can do it and you are capable, you know?
Mm-hmm. When I think about it also, in terms of YouTube, when people are either giving up, this is also advice for anyone in the audience. When people are really looking to give up on YouTube, I found it really important for people to live stream themselves, because a video can only do so much because it's pre-recorded and you could obviously like fake all that. But if you're doing like a
Mm.
live stream for like X amount of hours, you can't fake, if that makes sense, because you're going to be sitting there for that long. And if you're doing it like, let's say, even if it's every other day instead of every day, it'll wear down on you. And honestly, it's you'll show your true self on stream, like whether you like it or not. And I think streaming is also extremely important to keep and retain your audience as well. And so the viewers aren't just watching like a blank person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like it's something to attach themselves to and relate to.
Mm-hmm.
No, I totally agree.
So, what is your favorite movie or a video game that either inspired you or taught you something extremely important that you wouldn't have learned anywhere else?
Oh, that's such a good question. I'd say I don't actually watch a lot of movies nor anime anymore, but when I was growing up, anime was really prevalent in my home because my older brother loved it, my older sister loved it. Shows that impacted me that I've mentioned before were Fruit Basket, mainly because I really like related to Toru Honda, and I really adored her perseverance and her energy towards every bad thing that happened to her. It really inspired me. Same with the film Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind by Studio Ghibli. I really attached myself to Nausicaa growing up. I thought she was like a really powerful female figure. Um, and she gave me again like a lot of inspiration to be like fierce and uh, I guess in a way fearless when it comes to facing odds. When it comes to games that I really adore, I always mention Okami and Shadow of the Colossus. Like I said, I'm not much of a gamer, but there are a couple games that resonate with a lot of nostalgia for me.
I think for me, I don't know if you've watched Dragon Ball Z before, but
Yep.
I think the person that I was like, wow, this is someone that I looked up to growing up. I think it was Super Saiyan 2 Gohan. I don't know if you
Oh,
saw
okay.
that that certain portion of the series, but the reason why I love Super Saiyan 2 Gohan even to this day, it's because he had to like overcome the will, like in terms of fighting. He didn't want to fight people for like the sake of fighting, but to protect others. I think that's like a really important thing as well. I think especially when it comes to school as well, it's not just you that you're studying for. Like for example, if you're in a family, you're also studying so you can help provide for your family and for also for your parents as well. That's something that has stuck with me. And Super Saiyan 2 Gohan is still one of the most badass characters. That's just for in my opinion. I really love Gohan, at least at that stage. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, I think that's such an important value too. Is that sense of like family attachment, where it's like you work hard, but you also know that like no matter what, you kind of have a goal in some way. That
Hmm.
you always like attach yourself to things that are like really close to you that you want to help. And I think that's really cool because that can apply to friends too. But just the mentality of like growing with people around you and growing to not just, you know, focus on yourself, but also to like give back to others in a way.
Hmm. So here's the big question. So where did the name Spica come from?
Oh God. Okay. Actually, I was more expecting you to ask about mint, but this is a really interesting question. um, oh God. So the name Spica was actually a name given to me by someone who was really important in my life at one point. Someone that like uh was a big part of like a huge shift in my perspective of the world and my experiences. And Spica is actually a star. It's a star in the Virgo constellation. It's the brightest star in the Virgo constellation. And so I was nicknamed Spica by this person uh, because they were someone who really believed in me. And that name just had a lot of sentimental value to me. And it was something that every time I was having a rough patch, I would like think of that name and just feel happy. And so it just kind of stuck. I know there's a girl group called Spica and a couple of other things, but I don't know, something about that name just really felt like home to me. So
That's really cool. I did not know that. It's like I like how you connected it with being down in terms of like you can get yourself right back up because you're like a shining star. I really like that. That's really cool.
Thank you. Um,
So,
Gosh.
oh, sorry, what were you saying? Sorry.
No, no, no. I was just a little flustered. I don't actually talk about that a lot, so talking about it is a little embarrassing.
Oh no,
And
no, it's fine. It's perfectly fine. So, what was your initial idea for your profile picture actually?
oh, okay. Well, actually, for the recent profile picture, it's a part of a mini series I was doing on expressions. It's just part of one of the few things I like to do when I'm over on Instagram. Is I like to create little small series of things that might inspire me or things that I want to practice or just kind of expand my skills on. So I recently had a style shift. I've had about 6 different style shifts since I started back on Instagram. And this time I was focusing on eyes, hair, and just like general composition. And so I did this series based on expressions of wanting people to be able to attach themselves and relate a bit more to my OC mint. And so this particular profile picture is just one that I think really well represents my general demeanor, which is always kind of being in this like awkward of like, hi, not quite sure what to say, but really excited to talk with people.
No, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. So, let's see. Do you mind sharing who inspired you like the most growing up? Whether the person was like an idol or someone really close to you. You could also change the person's name as well if you don't want to like like explicitly like say their name
Yeah,
or.
no, absolutely. The funny thing is, I actually really didn't have idols growing up. It wasn't until I started expanding in art more that I started to realize that there were people I really, really looked up to in the art community. One of them, who's one of my biggest inspiration, is a gentleman named Ilya Kushinov. He was one of the artists who worked on Ghost in the Shell, and he's also made his own anime and mini series before. I also own all of his books. Another creator that I really admire is a writer called Katie O'Neill. She has several different books. She's made plushies, um, and her whole brand image is around uh, bringing light to topics that initially people didn't like talking about. Um, and trying to think of one other person. Another person that I really adore that I brought up recently was Queenie. She was a phenomenal artist who made series upon series of art to depict her journey as she was going through surgery up until the last day of her life. And when she passed away, she shook the entire art community. But her impact on me when I was younger was huge because she started inspiring me to see art in a different way, see art in the form of storytelling. I know that's something that seems like very common knowledge, but when I was younger, I didn't really see art in that way. I just thought it was something fun to do. But she conveyed a story that I fell in love with. Even though she was going through hurt, she made something really beautiful out of it. So she would be someone who still to this day is a landmark I look back on as being someone who really inspires me.
That's really really cool. I did not know that.
Yeah.
So oh sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh my
Sorry
gosh,
to
I have
interrupt
that. I
you.
just realized I also have your bad habit of saying sorry. I just realized that as well.
Yeah. No worries.
So how has school impacted you in both ways, positively and negatively growing up?
Ooh, that's a tough question. That's a really really interesting one though. Heck, uh, man, the topic of school is always like a really interesting one because I have a different bias than a lot of people. I went to a private institute. I had full scholarship to school, and I also went to general college. And so I don't have a degree for anything. I don't have the piece of paper on anything to say like, oh, you completed this whole thing. Um, I also do currently take online courses on Udemy. And with regards to like elementary school and high school is where I reinforce some of my worst bad habits that I had to work on a lot going into adulthood. Um, but I'd say in general, I think there is a huge importance on education and growing. I think school is going to be different for everyone. I personally didn't stay in school because of circumstances that were out of my control, things that happened that unfortunately you wish didn't happen, but did. I think school is valuable for experience, but I think it's something to be thought thoroughly about. That when you do pursue anything, not to just pursue it for the sake of saying, "Oh, I want to prove to my family or prove to people that like I can accomplish something or that I'm good at this thing." I think whether you do decide to go to school or don't decide to go to school, you can still be successful and you can still build a really like fulfilling life for yourself. I think there's an added benefit to the networking that comes and the foundational like sense of a clear path that might come with school. Um, but people, whether they pursue it or not, or if they dropped out or not, you can still have success. There's no end all be all path or a right path, in my opinion, when it comes to school.
I definitely agree with that. Okay, so now we're gonna switch up sections and we're gonna go talk more about you becoming an artist. So, how did you first learn how to draw in the beginning?
Actually, this is really funny. So the first book I ever picked up as a child was a Pokemon Pokedex book. And I actually still have a picture of like baby me with this Pokemon book. So Pokemon is what actually got me into art. I grew up where my older siblings drew and painted, and I really admired that skill. But for me, I just wanted to be able to draw Pokemon. I want, I thought they were so cute. And I like growing up, I didn't really have tons of pets that were my own, so I came up with all these like silly scenarios where I'd have a Pokemon as a pet. Um, so that was like the beginning, and my my art in the beginning was like hot trash. It's really funny. Um, but with regards to when I started progressing into like a professional field of art, or when I started to do art as a freelancer full time, that really didn't happen in any sort of like admirable way, I think, until the beginning of COVID, quite honestly. I was actually a full time artist at one point in between the period of 2016 till now. But even during that period, when I was working on a team, I was so new to everything, and I had no background in professional art that I still to this day felt like the quality of the work I'd put out, even though they really liked it, um, I didn't feel like I was giving out my best work. So at the beginning of COVID, I made the decision of like, hey, maybe I will step back into this field, because originally I was planning to go into broadcasting and social media management, but I was like, maybe, just maybe there's a reason art keeps coming back to me. And then I just started pursuing it, and then luckily, because of my pursuit of it, I was able to work full time again as a head illustrator. And so, yeah, it's opened a lot of really interesting doors into my life that I never would have expected to open, and a lot of like pathways that I never would have even considered when I was younger, such as like getting into YouTube, getting into Instagram, all that jazz. Like it was never something on the list of things that I like necessarily aspired to do, but now seems to just be in my pathway.
Mm-hmm. What was your parents' first reaction to like becoming like a professional artist in the
Oh,
beginning?
the typical. My dad, and mom are super supportive now, and I think they've in general always been supportive. But naturally, there's a worry that comes from being an artist. I think there's a natural concern of like, oh, you won't make money. Oh, like you won't get enough work. It's like the concern of them just wanting to see you succeed in any form of what that might be. But I don't know. I think their perspective changed the more I just pursued it without needing their validation. The more that I just acted on the things that I wanted to try for the sake of, I didn't want to go through this life having not given it my best effort, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they stood behind that. They saw my excitement for things that I was unsure of, and they just rode on that excitement with me, because I don't know. It allowed me to do a lot of things for them that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to do for my family.
That makes complete sense. Yeah, especially I was also talking to my parents also about YouTube and streaming in general. I think there came a point where I was like, since if you did not know, my major is actually computer science and it's actually pretty difficult for me right
Whoa.
now.
Oh no.
Yeah, and at one point I was like, do I really want to do this? And then at one point I'm like, all right, I need to make sure at least like for YouTube that when I'm growing up, because I've always wanted to do YouTube growing up, because I remember, I don't know if you've played any of the Pokemon games, but growing up I used
Heck yes,
to. Oh, you have? Okay, that's really
all of them.
cool. Wait, really? Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that. I did not know that.
I'm a huge Pokemon fan.
Do you have? Okay, hold on. I'm gonna pause my question. So what is your favorite generation?
Actually, what I'm currently replaying right now is Soul Silver, and I was obsessed. I've put in more hours than I'd like to admit to
Oh
on
my
my days
god.
off.
Oh my gosh, I did not know you like. That's really cool. I also have all the games except for the GameCube games. That's the big one that I'm trying to get. I don't know if you have Coliseum and XD on the GameCube. I'm planning on getting them, but if you didn't know, Pokemon prices are like skyrocketed right now. It's crazy.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Hmm.
I think there may be some of the older ones I didn't play, but I think the mainstream like storyline ones I've played all of them. I mean, obviously only one side of them because they always release them in pairs. I don't usually buy both games.
Hmm.
But yeah, for the most part, I've played just about every generation that's been released.
That's really, really cool. I did not know you were a massive Pokemon fan. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Actually, okay, I have a question for you, Justin. Who would be on your main team from any? You could choose a Pokemon from any generation. Who's going to be on your main team?
Okay, so first of all, rest in peace to this Pokemon, because I can't find my first Torterra that I lost a long time ago.
Oh
I literally
no!
can't find, like, I would literally have to find. I'm still trying to find that Torterra, because I had to always like reset my files, because obviously if you want to play through another game you'd have to reset your files. And
Yeah, yeah.
I think I might have reset like my original team, and I'm so
No!
mad. I'm so mad. I'm so mad. And I'm a big
You're
like shiny Pokemon hunter as well. So
oh, okay. I will admit I was not that person. I would put a lot of hours into Pokemon, but I could never commit to shiny hunting.
I would always do it on the side. That's what I would do. And then I think last year I committed to, like, I was like, okay, every day I need to do X amount of resets for I think the Reggies for Gen 3. And I did get them, and I did get all of the Weather Trio. So that was really, really cool as well.
Oh, I remember legendary hunting. Like I was a person where in elementary school I traded with my friends to get legendaries because
Hmm.
I was like too scared of like messing up and letting them escape.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I'd like collect these Pokemon and level these Pokemon that my friends wanted. And I was like, here, I'll give you 6 of these for one of your legendaries. And that's how I got my legendaries.
That regarding your previous question, I would definitely have Torterra on that team. Like,
Fair,
I
fair.
would 100% have my Torterra on that team, because I wish I could find that Torterra, because there's this one story with my original Torterra. My friend actually had this hacked Torterra, and he went up against me, which is crazy. So I was like, okay, my level 100 Torterra, you need to beat this hacked Torterra, and I will be proud of you. I remember when I was so young, I beat that Torterra, and I was so happy. And I did not know like any of the logistics of, I don't know if you're familiar with like the whole like math aspect of Pokemon with like IVs and EVs. I had no like literally no knowledge of that like whatsoever, and I beat that hack Torterra. I was so satisfied with that Torterra. Like, I have so much memories with that Torterra, and I'm so mad
Oh,
that Torterra's gone. So mad.
I remember I forget who I was with, but this was like a long time ago, and I had like my dream team, and I had all of these amazing Pokemon back in my PC, and then I think it was my DS. It was one of the DS games, and I lent it to one of my friends for like a couple days, and they wiped my account. I lost everything,
Why?
I
Why?
remember being so sad. I remember like looking at it, and I didn't
Oh
even
my
get mad. I was
gosh.
just sad. I just sat there, and I just started crying. They're like, "I'm so sorry," and I'm like, "It's okay, it's fine."
Oh my
Just
gosh.
restart. But yeah. Recently, I was actually doing a Nuzlocke with a friend. I feel like I broke a lot of the rules of the Nuzlocke
Oh
because like, when
no.
my Pokemon died, I was like, no, my baby.
I don't know, like especially with Nuzlocke, I've never tried it before. I think that'd be really fun for
They're
me to try.
heartbreaking.
Yeah,
They're
especially when
like,
they
oh man, I can't like I got so attached to some of these like some of these Pokemon in Soul Silver because you give them names and everything, right? And you kind of like create this whole scenario in your head of like this journey you're going on. And then when they die, you're just like, I'm mourning you more than I should for a video game character.
I don't know, it's kind of like this is okay, call me crazy, but for Pokemon, it feels like they're like your pet.
Yeah, exactly,
It's
exactly. Like they become like your best friends. Like especially in the Pokemon game, like in Soul Silver, you can actually walk around with them too, right? And you like
yeah.
interact and get to like see their reactions. Same with like some of the later games where you can like pet them and feed them and all this stuff. And like, oh, like it broke my heart. My first Nuzlocke, I was like, why am I doing this? Like this is awful. Who would do this? And then my friend's like, there's ways to make it fun. You can like adjust some of the rules and like even then it feels like you're like what's the point of doing the Nuzlocke if you like bend the rules, you know? So I don't know.
Yeah, Hollow just mentioned also in the chat about what is it called? XD and Coliseum. Those games, like if you didn't know, like Heart Gold, Soul Silver, I think like complete, it goes for around 150 to 200 if you didn't know that right
Oh
now.
my
It's
gosh.
crazy. It's not healthy. And I think actually I think it actually goes for more since Heart Gold and Soul Silver are the most like popular one because I actually got it like way back before COVID because I wanted to collect like each of the games because I have spent, I'd say, like a good half of my lifespan playing Pokemon, and it's not healthy at all. But we don't
It's okay.
talk
It's
about
okay.
that.
I'm not judging you. I'm not judging you, man.
We don't talk about that. But yeah, I think Pokemon in general, man, I just love those games. But what's your opinions on the newer generation? Because I feel like after
Oh, here we go.
um
The controversial
yeah.
question.
So like I played from Gen 3 to Gen 5. Like that's all I would play like even now. I'm not sure if you know if you've played like Black and White before, right?
Yep. Yep.
Mhm. Uh and the Pokemon World Tournament, when I found that that was a thing, have you heard of it before or no?
I think I have heard of it, but I never participated. Because like when I started playing Pokemon again, because I took some time off of it too. I didn't catch up with all the gens as they were coming out. I kind of went back and played some.
Mhm.
I think I was out of the loop of things that were just in general happening with the community, and I never really was the type to play online with it.
Oh no, it's not an online thing. It's in Black and White too, actually. Like how you would fight all the champions again, or
Oh,
and
okay,
yeah,
yeah.
it's not like an actual. I would never go to those tournaments. Those people are like way too sweaty on the game. I would never
Way
go to a
too funny.
Pokemon tournament.
It's like a workout playing Pokemon.
Yeah, because honestly, competitive Pokemon is just math. It's literally just math, and I'm like, I do enough of that in my own on my own time.
Me and
So,
Math don't quite have an intimate relationship. We don't get along too well. So
oh
I wouldn't
my,
do well. Anything that requires just math knowledge, I would be screwed.
oh my God, Hollow just said it's $350 easily for a complete on eBay, and then Soul Silver can push up to 400. Okay, I did
Oh,
not know that.
oh my god.
And
I mean, if
people
you
are
got money to
paying.
spend and you want nostalgia, I mean, I guess it's worth it. Because I mean, people definitely put a lot of hours into Pokemon. So, but like that's crazy.
Oh my God,
Thinking
for
like
that
how much
much.
these games were when they first came out.
I know, it's crazy. I think for each box, I think for the Heart Gold and Soul Silver back in the day, I think wasn't it like $40 or something, I think? I actually
Was
don't
it? Was
remember.
it? I don't know. How would world?
Or the wait,
Oh my
Hollow went
gosh,
to the World
that's so
Finals? What's going
cool.
on?
That's insane. I had no idea you did that, Hello.
What the heck? Okay, so
I'll be DMing you later.
that's crazy. I did not know you guys played Pokemon a lot too. This is very interesting. I'm so happy we.
It's so
Oh,
ironic that we're talking about this too, because the series I was supposed to release after this emotion series that I was working on was supposed to be a Pokemon series where it's mint with different Pokemon and different outfits or with different teams.
oh wait, I have a question for like both you and Hollow as well. I know Hollow's not like he's just listening to the podcast as well. Have you guys ever gone to those Pokemon events before, like to get like a special like event Pokemon? Have you guys gone to those or no?
With Pokemon Go, yes, but with like the actual games themselves, I'm gonna say no. But like in Pokemon Go, how they like announce that this specific Pokemon is gonna be available today, or like you can catch like this legendary in this area. I have admittingly back when I was kind of addicted to Pokemon Go, I'd be out of the house for hours. Like like I'd be gone. I'd be in the most random places, just trying to catch these Pokemon. And you meet so many people during these events because everyone is trying to catch the same Pokemon. So like if you saw someone on your phone, you would look over and just nod at them, being like, "Yeah, I know what you're doing."
I don't know, like when I was growing up, in Gen 4, like Gen 3 and Gen 4 were like my bread and butter growing up. So what I would do is my cousins who were also like really, really big into Pokemon as well, um, they told me there's these things called events for like event Jirachi, event like I don't know if you've heard of like Keldeo, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Different kinds of Pokemon, like the three dogs, and yeah, I went to those events, and it was wild because you would get this like poster. I wish I had, like, I do not know where the heck I put those posters, but they would give out like the poster for like the specific Pokemon, and it would say like, oh, I remember this very vividly for like the legendary dogs like Entei, Raikou, and Suicune. They had like this poster. I don't know. I was weird. Also, I would also take like a stack of those posters. I'd be like, "Yo, I'm gonna take this," and then the GameStop employees were like, "Okay, that's fine." So I would like hang them all over my room because I didn't like get a lot of posters growing up, and then they would just tell you like the event time, like, oh yeah, you were supposed to go on this event and this like this time and this time, and then they would have like the three legendary dogs. I need to find that. I don't know where it is. They're probably thrown away, but it's just like a piece of history. And then I remember sitting there because I was a big collector like back in the day. I had like platinum, pearl, and like diamond. I did not know I was this big brain growing up. I would actually reset my game so I could also like make sure like for future games that I could transfer them up for X and
Oh,
Y. I did not
yeah,
know I was like this big brain back in the day. I was like,
yeah.
why don't we get more of these Pokemon here? And I still do have some of them. Most of them are lost, unfortunately. But like, oh my goodness. And you there's also like event cartridges out there that people could like relive their whole thing. But honestly, that's a topic for another day. But yeah, that's just crazy. I mean, just looking back.
Also, like Hollow mentioned having a shaman. A shaman was one of my favorite Pokemon.
Oh
Like
my
a
god,
shaman is so cute.
Shaven's so
Little like
cute.
hedgehog Pokemon. So adorable.
I know, and then when it turns into sky form, I love Shaman sky form.
Yeah, it's so oh man. There's generations where I'm like, wow, some of these Pokemon are like kind of hideous, but like
Garbodor. I don't know if you know the Pokemon Garbodor.
Garmotor. Wait.
Garbodor. It's like the
Oh,
trash Pokemon.
the giant
Yeah.
trash looking mouse thing. God, in Pokemon Sword and Shield, it just roams around in one of the main areas, and it's freaky, man. Like that thing is. Ugh.
Oh yeah. Oh, you also have Sword and Shield? Yeah, Sword and Shield, I feel like going back to the original question, how do you feel about like Gen 6 onwards? Because
Oh,
for
man.
me, it's like thumbs downs for me like all the way.
So okay, I'm going to be the person to like come from this perspective, which is I go into every game wiping my bias. So if like I'm someone who like I can actually like completely forget about my previous experience to enjoy whatever the experience I'm having as a like a raw form. So when I went into playing Sword and Shield, I knew that everyone had like nothing good to say about it. Same with gosh, what was the one with like the Galarian um mega evolutions?
Oh
I
yeah,
remember
yeah,
that one had
yeah.
such a huge controversy too. And then gosh. Anyway, with all the games, like there were some where I was like, this is kind of like this like it's a unique idea. It's not necessarily my favorite, but I will say my natural bias is I like cute things. So Sword and Shield made me happy because I could see the Pokemon that I grew up with, especially because the evolutions. I know this is cliche and very typical. The evolutions are my favorite. I have a plushie of every evolution. To me, they were like all the babies I wish I had. And so being able to see these Pokemon that I like love so much just walking around was so satisfying in Pokemon Sword and Shield. Like the game was so short, and the story didn't necessarily like wow me in any way, shape, or form. But just like the fact of being able to walk around and have these Pokemon that you like grow up seeing like the very like pixelated 2D form of actually in like a 3D model was so cool to me. So that's where I came from it. Like I loved it for that aspect. I still don't like love the story as much as like right now I was enjoying like Soul Silver and going into Platinum, but yeah, I don't know. I think there's like hit or misses, but it's still always cool to experience like a totally different form of gameplay that I've never experienced in previous games. You know?
I definitely agree with that, especially with the new. I think a lot of people were complaining for the new Gen 4 remakes as well that are coming out. I don't know if you've heard of them. Like I think it's a Temporal Diamond and Spatial
Yeah.
Pearl, and then
Yeah.
Legends is coming out. I think I'm really excited for both, and I'm perfectly fine with going in like with the chibi art style. But man, people are so mad about the chibi art style.
Yeah, I will admit when I first saw the chibi art style, I was kind of like, oh, like this is like interesting. It kind of reminded me of like Harvest Moon. Like
Oh
that's what it
yeah.
makes me think of. Which don't get me wrong, I got no bias against Harvest Moon, but at the same time, like the intense like 3D models that they have going for like this open world concept looking like version. I don't remember which one that is, but
Yeah,
I
it
remember
was the Arceus one. Yeah, the one
yeah,
the
like
one next to it.
that looks so epic. Like I'm so excited to try that. I don't really have much of an opinion on the chibis because again, I think once I play the game, I'll figure out whether or not I enjoy it or not. I am one for style. Like I do prefer a nice styled game over one that like I think it's like maybe a little like meh. But I don't know. I still think it's gonna be cute. I think it'll be cute and I
Yeah.
think it'll be fun.
I think also with Pokemon now, I think it's more of like a cash grab, if that makes sense, because I still have my Pokemon, like I think in my older games still, and I don't transfer like all of them up because if I'm pretty sure you know about this, but like the subscriptions and everything that you have to do with like the new Pokemon Home and everything, it's I don't know, it just feels like a cash grab and it feels kind of like dirty, if that makes sense. I don't
Mm,
know.
hmm. I don't think I ever really got like too attached to like the Pokemon Home stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like I can see where you're coming from. I think like Pokemon in and of itself is like it's its own like legacy game company. Like I feel like it's like an evergreen content that's never gonna really die. I think well into the point that like that company like whether it goes away or gets replaced by some other new trend. Like I feel like Pokemon is just going to forever exist. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know on like that side of things. I think it's like expensive, and I think in some ways they cut content a lot more than maybe they did in previous games. Because like one thing I love about Pokemon Platinum is the fact that you can catch so many legendaries,
Mm-hmm.
and that you get to experience two different regions that are so like nostalgic. Where in like let's say Pokemon Pikachu or Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, like I did think that game like I even got it and I thought like wow this game is a little awful. Mainly because I felt like I was being like talked to like a baby
Yeah, yeah.
during the game. So like yeah, I can see the pros and cons and like how they're trying to like adjust the content. Um yeah, I don't know. I don't know, man. It's a company that makes so much money,
I know, I know.
and they do, and they know people are gonna buy it. So
People will complain, but they'll still buy it. They'll still buy it.
yeah, exactly. Like you'll be like, oh man, I hope this changes, and like you'll kind of like internally pray that it does, but like you're gonna put out the money, and they know you're gonna put out the money.
I literally have to like put aside like a good $120 to $130 for both, like because I think there's $60 each now instead of the 40 that they used to be
Mm-hmm.
back in the day. So now I have to like move like a certain amount of money aside. I'm like, all right, this is my Pokemon stuff, you know.
Your Pokemon Fund account. You have like a little savings in your bank.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, I gotta set aside money
Oh my
for
god.
the new
No.
games that are coming out because I pretty much collected, like I said, every single game from Gen 3 to onwards. The reasons why that I did not collect like Pokemon Yellow and like Pokemon Red in those games and like Pokemon Gold and Silver is because their internal battery dies. So you lose the save file that's on there. But on Gen 3 games, the battery does die, but you keep the save file if it makes sense. But the in-game stuff doesn't happen.
Hmm.
So
Oh,
so yeah, that's pretty much why I didn't collect 1 to 2, but I did not get the GameCube stuff, which I highly regret. And I know, like Hollow is telling me it's like what $200 right now, and I think they
we'll pray
said
for your bank account.
and then Coliseum's like 100, and I'm like, I already have a bunch of other games and stuff have to get there. I'll wait. I have patience. I have all these other games.
Meanwhile, by the time you get to it, it's like $1,000.
That's what I was saying. I'm like, dude, if even if after this whole like nonsense pandemic is like over, like if it goes to like 300, that's when I'm gonna be really pissed off. Because GameCube games and like games in general, they've like skyrocketed, and it's just not good. I don't like it.
Yeah, it's so interesting because like I have someone in my family who's a game collector, and like gosh, if they sold all their game, I bet they would make thousands. Like I think they have so many games that they never even played, they just collected. And like I remember someone was bringing it up that like some of the games they had were worth like $500 now, and I was like, geez, these are just collecting dust.
I know, I know.
You're like,
Okay.
oh.
Oh no, sorry, what were we saying?
No, I was just making a remark. They're like pieces of gold that you're just ignoring.
Oh no, no. That's perfectly that's sorry, I'm like mixed, right? Like my brain is like still
Oh,
wow that you and Hollow are into Pokemon as well, and I did not know he went to tournaments. That's crazy. That's crazy. I'm gonna have to talk to him about that later.
we're all sliding into his DMs like, yo,
We're like,
hello.
yo, Hollow, how were those tournaments?
You got some time for Poke Talk?
Oh, okay. So let's move on to another section, the business section. So this is going to be like a shorter section, I would say. And then we're going to talk about two other sections, your dreams and aspirations slash VTubing. If you guys didn't know, Spica is going into VTubing, which I think is completely amazing. I can't believe.
Yeah, it's a huge surprise. I think very few people actually know that that surprise is coming. So this is, I guess, specific to your channel that you get content on it now.
Clickbait title. No, I'm just
Oh
kidding.
god.
No, no. Oh, we'll just keep it under wraps. Not many people watch the podcast like as a whole, so it's fine. Your secret's probably safe in general. And then
Okay, just you. We'll just whisper, okay, chat. This is all too nuts.
and then I think after we'll talk about like lastly, this is a big topic that me and Speak are going to talk about for like the last topic, and it'll be like cancel culture. That'll be like the last huge
Oh, here we
segment.
go. The debate, the true
Yeah.
debate.
Okay.
Right. Hit me
So
with the questions.
in terms of business, so how important do you think it is for someone to learn business in this day and age, since I know a lot of people who aren't into business and they aren't like well versed in it? And do you mind also like explaining your experiences as well?
That's a loaded question. I would say the biggest thing that people have a misunderstanding about is people go into any form of social media or go into art and they have the perspective that it's not a real business. Like I've had so many times when I first got into the art community where like people didn't want to pay for work or anything like that because it's like, oh, well, you're an artist, you can draw. Like it takes you no time at all. Why would I pay for this? Um, and like you deal with all sorts of people like that. And the thing is I think if you treat what you do as a hobby, it'll never turn into a real business that can create financial like what's the word? I don't necessarily want to like throw the word financial freedom around, but like anything you do can become a business, but you have to accept that it is a business. I think with like for art, for example, it's not about just posting your art. It's about being aware of how your content adds value to people. Like I know for me personally, one of my aspirations and goals is to produce a course. And for no other reason than I always get asked about how did I get started? How do I create an art style? How do you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of it is common knowledge that isn't so common. A lot of it comes down to like simple steps that once you hear it once, you'll never forget it. And with stuff like that, you have to understand that time is so valuable. I think so many people can like easily invest like hundreds of hours into social media and be feeling like, wow, like I'm getting nowhere. And oftentimes it comes from like, well, how are you marketing yourself? Are you appealing to a niche market? Are you aware of how you're creating like a call to action in what you do? Are you acknowledging your community? Are you giving your community something that they want to attach themselves to, something that they can relate to? I like to like refer to like Pusheen as a company. Pusheen is like just this cute cat, but they've built such a huge story around it. Same with Apple, that you now identify your entire identity to that brand. So when you own something of that, you actually like are saying something to other people about who you are. So if you own an Apple laptop, for example, or like a MacBook, pardon me, like you're attaching yourself to this brand and this brand's value because they make their value statement so clear, right? It's for the innovators, it's for the people that want to go above and beyond, it's for the self-made, you know. Where same with like if you buy Starbucks over buying like, okay, this is like a very like Canadian thing. If you bought Starbucks over like, I don't know, some other like cheap fast food chain, buying Starbucks, you think of like class, or like you think of yourself being like more bougie. I don't know. You know what I mean though?
No,
Like,
no, I know what you mean. I know what you
says
mean.
something about you. And if when you put yourself into social media and people can identify like specific traits about you, to me that says that you haven't identified with like who you are, what your value statement is, and what your brand is. I mean, even for me, like going into art again, like I was like, what the heck am I doing? Because originally, again, I was like, you can think of a brand if you're going to go into like podcasting or interviewing. You can go into journalism. Like you can kind of identify immediately like some very like common themes. But I feel like when you go into like social media, a lot of people just like put their stuff out there, and then they're like, like why aren't people engaging more with me? Why aren't people like talking more about what I do? And I think that's just because like, yeah, again, like what can they attach themselves to? What about you and what you create is adding value to their lives and helping them better represent themselves to the point that they can like identify with you and who they are. Oh gosh, what's the word? Come back to me on that one. I forgot the word, but I hope that kind of makes sense.
Oh no, it makes perfect sense. No, I definitely know what you mean. Before I add on to that, I do need to look at the chat because I think people were talking and it's on my other monitor here. So,
Hollow says he's gonna get interrogated. It's very true. Hollow, we're coming for you.
And also, I think someone in the chat from that's part of your audience, Spica, said that your links are broken. I think so. I need to fix that soon. Yeah, I need to. I'm gonna make sure to fix that on the original. I think it's Ardeen. I don't know if you know who that is, Spica, from your audience.
Oh, okay. It could just be like a, I don't know. Sometimes Twitter links are kind of weird.
Yeah, I'm gonna make sure on the official video and stuff, which you guys can watch on the podcast channel, which I'll probably put it out later or whatever, before we end the stream and stuff. We're gonna be putting that. I still need to make the highlights channel, and then I need to do that as well. But hello to everybody. I'm sorry for not really going in to talk to each of you. Hello, Rare. What's up, Crimson?
Kai, we won't mention that it's a secret. It's a secret.
But yeah. Oh no. Oh yeah. Okay. Back to what we were talking about. Also about scenarios, and also everybody in the chat. I'm sorry if it seems like I'm ignoring you. I'm trying not to here. We're just getting into heated discussions here. I would say
yeah, about Pokemon.
about Pokemon. Yeah. Oh, also to add on to what you said about business as well, I think it's kind of like learning a language as
Yep,
well. Um,
100%.
like there's no one like right way of doing it. It's like if someone asks you, how do I become a YouTuber, or how can I do this? How can I do that? Like, and you're trying to start something new. It's honestly, there's no one way, like one right way of doing it. And I see
Hmm.
like a lot of people wasting their time like trying to find the perfect method or something to learn a language
Hmm.
when
It's
they
just about
waste.
doing it.
Yeah, it's just about doing it. You have to like just start doing it. Like that's what I did. That's what I do with like anything. um I remember like when I was trying to learn Java for the first time for computer science, I was like, I have no idea what the heck this is. And
Yeah.
looking at this code, like, come
What
on,
is this foreign
what
language?
is this foreign language? Because that's what it is. That's what Java actually is. It is like a foreign language
Hmm.
because you have to like learn like the workarounds and everything. But yeah, anyone out there, I think me and Spica can definitely agree on this. Like you just have to like go in and then you'll just learn from there and then you'll just grow from there.
Yeah, I also think some like I was talking to like a friend who mentioned how it's also important to give yourself like a boundary too. Like if you're going into like social media and like you're really not sure if this is quite the right thing for you. I think some people dedicate like years of their life to like just maybe doing something when it's not really working. Not saying that you can't do it, but just that some people don't always like take the moment to like kind of humble and think like, wow, this method isn't working. Maybe I should try a totally different thing. And for me, I gave myself a year when I first entered into social media again over on Instagram, and I said, okay, my goal is to hit 1,000 followers in a year. It was great that I surpassed that goal. But at the same time, it gave me that chance after 1 year to like recheck with myself and say, okay, well, this is the milestone we've hit. Now, what am I going to do going forward? Because this was just to dip my toes back into it to see if this is what I want to do. But what can I do to up my game? And I think everyone like kind of needs that timeline to give yourself, whether it's a goal or something to kind of like push towards, and also to give you like a genuine time to self-reflect and say, okay, what's going to happen next. um I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, it makes perfect sense to me. If anyone in the audience needs clarification, I would be happy to answer. Oh, did someone just come on? Someone just put system dot out to print ln. Okay,
okay.
okay. All right, I see you. I see you, Crimson. I see you. All that's doing is just printing out the message that Crimson put inside.
um but like, yeah, I don't know, I think it's so cool like seeing people go into social media because you never know what's gonna stick. Like
Mm-hmm.
things that you would think are like such like bizarre taboo ideas could be the next thing that like really hits home for people. So I don't know, I think it's so good to just go into it head first and try it, because at least then you can say that you did.
Mm-hmm. It's like when you're growing up, like what people say, like you want to make sure you do like your the best you absolutely can. So when you grow up, you can say, yeah, I tried my best. There's no regrets because you can't go back. You can't go back to do whatever. I mean, social media you probably could, but it obviously would be harder. Imagine if you're like a 50-year-old trying to get into social media and all that. That'd be
Yeah,
pretty difficult, but you could
no,
still
for
do it.
sure.
You could still do it. But like let's say if you're trying to do something like sports related, like let's say basketball or something, like you need to make sure, yeah, I tried the best I could, and what is it called, and you'll just have no regrets going forward. I think that's really important in life, just making sure you don't have any regrets going forward.
Yeah, and I think like I personally come by to the idea that I think regrets come naturally. I think there's always like there's just so many things to try and learn, right? I feel like there's like millions upon millions of options and paths ahead of you, and it is hard to know which one's the right one. And I think it creates like, especially for the our generation and people coming forward, or even people in previous like generations. I think everyone comes to that point where they have like a mini existential crisis of like, oh, what if I did this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but I think that's also natural. I think that feeling of not always knowing like if something was the right thing is totally natural. But I think once you do at least give your best shot and you give yourself a timer so you don't get too like high with expectations on something will give you the best opportunity to not only learn from the experience if it goes well or if it goes bad, but gives you that chance to go into a new experience with a really fresh like slate. And you're gonna notice you're probably a different person having at least you're a different person having at least tried it.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, so this is another big question that I want to ask you. So, what are you like requested most often in terms of yeah, what are you just requested like
Like
very
what
often
do
in
people
general?
like request to have me do?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My community and the communities that reach out to me in general seem to be very wholesome, and it makes me very happy. um, Generally, it's a lot to do with portraits. Obviously, that's kind of what I'm known for is portrait design. Not many people know that I do background design or that I do concept art or full body. Not many people know that I can do things for like banners and things like that, etc. But I just tend to notice a lot of people want help coming up with a concept of what their online identity is. And so I often get asked to help develop an OC. So like, for example, my OC Mint, the OC you have, the OC Hollow has, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of people want to have that online persona because I find that a lot of people in the art community in general are much more reserved. They don't necessarily like showing their face as much, and so to have something that you can attach yourself to feel safe, to feel like you can express yourself freely. A lot of people want to have the creativity to create that, but they always get stuck feeling like, oh, what if I make it too much like myself, or what if it's like it's not good enough, or what if my model looks ugly, or what if my color, yeah, like things like that. And so I generally work with people step by step to help them develop an identity that they can really attach themselves to.
Mm-hmm. So so yeah, so just like an OC that for example me and Hollow have, like I like how you when you said persona, my brain immediately went to Persona 5. I don't know why.
I kind of figured looking at your profile pic, I was
I was like, wait a minute, persona. She just said persona.
like,
Okay, so we're done with the business aspect. So let's go to like the deeper section in terms of like dreams and aspirations. So what would you say is like your goal and purpose like in life as of right now?
There is one motto I live by: inspire others the way I've been inspired. I have it written on. I had it actually engraved on my stylus for my iPad Pro, and I also have it engraved on my tablet itself. Um, I have had like the great blessing of having a lot of like incredible people around me that have surrounded me with a lot of love, a lot of support, and have always kept me going, even when you don't necessarily think you have it all in you. And so, if there's anything that I aspire to be a part of my legacy, it's to help inspire people to be their best selves, to pursue the things that they see as their passion, and to help guide people who want to improve towards maybe their goals or the things that they uh, identify as being a part of their purpose. Before I got back into the art community, I was in a mentorship community where I worked with a lot of youth. And if there's anything I identified with a lot, it was being able to give people a form of expression. And I think that's what art is. I think that's why I lean so much towards the idea of presenting a course for beginners, for people with no experience in art, to give them an opportunity to express themselves. I think the field of like artistic therapy is so interesting to me. Um, but yeah, I would say in general, one is to create like a long-term goal is to create financial freedom for myself, to give myself the opportunity to help the people I want to help freely, and to give myself the opportunity to experience things I never would have otherwise experienced. Traveling is a huge thing on my list because I spent most of my life staying home uh, for reasons that I'd rather keep private. But in general, I want to give myself the opportunity to experience more in life. And I definitely felt that art was the gateway to do that.
That's really cool. What do you hope to mainly like accomplish for yourself and like for others in the future?
I think that still comes down to I want to be able to help. the handful of people that I genuinely feel like I can help, and see the ripple effect of their impact and them surpassing any like the wildest dreams of what you can imagine. I think everyone has like that really bright fire in them, something that really ignites their passion and desire to pursue just excellence. And I think when I see that in someone, being able to support that and being able to fan that flame is one of my, in my opinion, one of my life purposes. Um, Keep in mind though, I am definitely the person that like you'll meet a lot of people that have very superficial views on what their future is and what their passions are, and so that can be a little bit draining because someone can maybe say that they want to do something, and then you can invest a lot of time in them, and then they never really follow through. But I really am just kind of like speaking to that like 1 to 2% where like nothing is going to stop them from getting what they want, and I just love seeing the realization of something like really raw and new in the community that I involve myself in. It doesn't matter what the community is, but just really being able to feel like I'm giving back, because I felt like so many people in my life have given so much to me in the sense of support, encouragement, vision, etc. That all I'd ever want to do is give back.
Mm-hmm. It's a really cool goal to have in mind because I have like a similar aspect where this is the problem that I had growing up on YouTube and uh, what is it called? I think just helping too many people as well. I think that's the main thing that's like I'm afraid of. Like, uh, this is why I'm really happy where I am right now with like not pulling as many views, for example. And yes, eventually I do want to like obviously pull more views and meet more like amazing people because that's why I really wanted to do YouTube. The scary part is there's some people like out there that really need to like that really need that how do I explain this? They really need someone to like lean back against, if that makes sense, that you don't
Like,
know. Mm-hmm. That you can't like one-on-one talk with them. I think Markiplier and like a bunch of big YouTubers, they also had that huge issue where they're like, how can I get to the people that like actually need me to talk to them, if that makes sense, because a lot of people's lives are just terrible, like especially like in certain circumstances, and that's why they rely a lot on like escapism and for example like for me like anime and games, that would be like a perfect example of escapism and why they would need it.
mm-hmm. That's a really, really interesting topic to touch on because I actually, like, I think about this quite a lot, actually, um, because I'm someone that I find a lot of people approach with like the mentality of like, oh, like this person's super nice and like they have a lot of time, or they're online so often, like I can talk to them. And I'm always welcome to like a conversation, but I am very hyper aware of intention. So if someone like triggers a red flag for me in the way that they're
Mm-hmm.
communicating, I kind of know right away if this is someone who I can help or someone that um, you know I might just not have the capacity, because that's the thing is I think the more you grow on social media, the more you want to help everyone because you become so hyper aware of what's out there and what people are struggling with, and you want to help everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is if you can't even have the capacity to take care of yourself, you don't have the capacity to help them, because what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing is you're harming their progress long term, right? I think there's like a limit to things that you could do. Like you can reach out, you can just be like, hey, hello. But keep in mind, let's say you have like 50 DMs a day, and every person wants to spend an hour with you. You only have 24 hours,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this isn't to sound like oh, you just don't want to invest time in people, but you have 24 hours. You're going to have people in your life that become your inner circle, that become the people that you can lean on them and they can lean on you. It's like a very balanced, healthy relationship. I think that there's a sense of acknowledging everyone the best you can, but knowing that necessarily investing your time in a very emotional sense where you create your own vulnerability by giving that sense of yourself up to them to lean on you, that's a really tough thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
I have it happen often. especially being in the art community, one of the most common guilt trips that I notice in the art community is when someone comes into your DMs, they're like, hey, hi, like, I really love your work. I really admire what you do. And then they start messaging you daily. They're like, hey, can you talk to me about this? Can you spend time with me on this? Which is not a bad thing. These are not bad
Mm-hmm.
things. But what happens is when you say no, when you have to set the boundary and you say, hey, you know, it's great that we can talk daily, but quite honestly, I'm busy right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I really just don't have this time for socializing, because that's part of being an independent artist, is that, you know, people think that because you're online that you're available, but that's not the case, right? When you're
Mm-hmm.
online, like I said, your work is a business. It's not just child's play. You have to treat it like a business. You have to dedicate time to it. You have to invest time into research. Just because you're online doesn't mean you're available. But the mentality of seeing people online, especially for the younger audiences, it's like, well, since they don't have to work necessarily, they just assume that you being online means you being available. And why can't you spend time with me? Why do you think you're better than me?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not, like, I think where any creator comes from. I don't think often that creators like think that they're better than someone. But I think all creators know that there's a self discipline aspect to creating content of any kind that requires you to really be one on one with yourself sometimes. Like, you can't just constantly be pushing to help everyone. Um, for me personally, I do struggle with this from time to time. I do tend to help a couple too many people all at once. But I also am much more hyper aware of my capacity limit. So when I have reached my capacity, I will tell people, I'm like, hey, you know, I really want to be there for you, but right now, I want to let you know that I'm here. I'm here in spirit to support you, but I can't be everything you need right now. I always tell people, people that put me on a pedestal, I get really scared because
Yeah.
I'm no one's savior. I'm no perfect person. I'm a human being that makes mistakes and gets tired too, just like everyone else. And even if I'm not struggling to the same extent as someone else, I do believe that even in the heat of struggle, everyone can grow and everyone can do like one small thing to push themselves out of a bad situation. Because there's a phenomenal book that I love and I preach to literally everyone and anyone. It's called Make Today Count by John C. Maxwell. And that book got me through like the worst times when I really didn't have anyone. Because that book reminded me and kept me grounded that no matter what you're going through, you have control over like two things: your reaction and your response. And when you feel like you have no control and your world's falling apart, that was my solace, and that was what kept me grounded, knowing that, like, okay, I don't have to look too far ahead. I can just look at this moment. I can just look at this next minute and say, I'm going to do this thing. Um, that mindset shift took me 3 years. um, but I try to give people who reach out to me who really need help the direction to kind of take that big step of independence. Because I think that's the dynamic that's so hard to struggle with, is being able to help people, but not to the point where they become reliant on you like solely, and you become a sense of solace and like a savior in their mind. Because when that happens, uh, you have circumstances that like I commonly dealt with, where once you say no, they suddenly lash out because they take it so personally, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
they'll lash out. They'll say all the vulgar things you can think of that any uh, like anyone in the public eye has heard once or twice before, which is like the statements that shouldn't be said. The things like, you know, go blah 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 yourself, and
Yeah.
all,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean, like
No, I know
that
what you mean. Mm-hmm.
and that toxic behavior, no matter how much someone's hurting, it doesn't validate hurting someone else to that extreme, or saying those kinds of things to that extreme. I think when someone's hurting, those feelings are valid, but to push and hurt someone else because you're feeling that way, I don't think is appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had this happen several times, where someone will come into my DMs and think, oh, you're so nice because of how you act on social media, but then you're so distant in DMs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing is, it's like, you want to be able to be happy. But when someone starts to neglect the fact that you have time and priorities as well, that you have passions and things that you're putting your time towards, and they make you feel guilty for that, that I don't think is okay. And that I think
Mm-hmm.
for any creator should be respected.
Yeah, so I guess we'll start getting into the cancel culture aspect, because this also ties in to I actually have like a really recent story that had actually happened to me in terms of your own story about that. And unfortunately, It was with I don't want to say like their exact names, but there were these I'd say like group of people. Let's just call them group of people. These
Okay,
group
okay.
like this group of people who I would talk to. I think it was like ever since the beginning. Whenever I think like what 2016, 2015, but I started YouTube a while back, like in the early like 2010s, like just casually. But 2015, 2016, when I wasn't like pulling as many what is it called? This also played into why I wanted to take a break from social media as well. Let's say like let's call this group A, I guess.
Okay.
So group A, I would always hang out with them. I would always talk to them like, hey, since when I was younger, I would have more time instead of now I have to go to college, work, all that, blah blah blah. But it came to a point where when I said no, like what you said, and I couldn't hang out with them because I've talked to these people. I've talked to them about their own like issues and insecurities, and then I talked to them about my own. And then the moment when I said no, like you said, they started lashing out. Like Group A started lashing out. They were like, "Oh yeah, this and this." They made like a whole like diss video about me, like their own mini like cancel culture as like just cancel trying to cancel me, I guess. And then that actually hurt me for like a good day, but as usual I had to get my ass up, and then I was like, all right, whatever. And they actually had the gall to go up into one of my VCs when I was talking to my homies, and then they're like, oh yeah, we just wanted to check up on you. We thought you would be like, I don't want to say the word, but it starts with an S, and then like how when people say, oh yeah, jump off a um
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they said, oh yeah, we thought you would be S
Wow.
yeah, so we decided to check up on you and see how you were doing or whatever, because they made like a whole diss video about me. And then we're cool now and it's fine, but they made like this whole diss video about me. They're like, oh yeah, he wasn't what he once was. He wasn't they made this whole argument about, oh yeah, we're only here to provide you content or whatever. And I'm like, I'm only pulling like 5 6 views. I don't know what you're talking about. But they were telling me pretty much that you weren't spending a time with me. That this is what they were really trying to say. You weren't spending time with me. You're going off to college and stuff, and we really don't appreciate that. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't have time anymore. I have to go to college. And then essentially what Group A was saying was, it's time for us to like cancel you because you aren't here for us anymore. And thankfully that didn't happen, and I really was sad to see them go. But then at the same time, like they also need to grow, like what you said, Spica, on their own terms. And yeah, it's really hard for me to get like too close to a person now in terms of like online, and
Mm-hmm.
for like viewer wise, obviously not like
Mm-hmm.
content creator wise, because I think, for example, you and Hollow know like the struggles about being like a social media presence as well. um
Mm-hmm.
but I think just daily people think that, oh yeah, like you said, oh, just because that person's online they have time. But like, no, we're growing up, we're going into adulthood, we need to start hashing things out. We're like adults now, we need to set our ground and everything. And
Yeah.
they actually said that oh yeah, you were only with us for like the donations and all that. And I'm like, dude, it's not like you did donate to me out of your own accord, like for example like $5 $10, or like and probably cumulative, probably like $100 to $200, like for both of them. But then I'm like, I'm not gonna sustain a living on that, if that makes sense. And
Mm-hmm.
um I don't know if you know where I'm trying to get at here,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I was just telling them, I was like, yo, I can't spend time with you guys anymore. And essentially it just went to a negative thing. But what they were really trying to say is, oh, I'm really sad because he's going away. And then I even messaged them that I'm really sorry that I can't like be there for you guys anymore because I'm growing up and I have things to do now. Like, no, like not in an offensive way. If and I think you understand that too,
Yeah, yeah.
Spica.
That
Uh,
it's just part of life that
mm-hmm,
as we age, especially into adulthood, because you don't know how much your life is going to change the moment you're not kind of handheld through every decision,
mm-hmm,
right? And I think that's the biggest thing where I personally do create that huge boundary between me and someone who hasn't quite hit adulthood. Not that I don't want to support them if they need that support, or they have questions, or things I can genuinely help with and invest time into. But plain and simple, I think all of us are trying to do our best to navigate life, and especially in adulthood when you realize it's all up to you. You want to try to put a lot of time into thinking about what you do daily. You want to invest time in the things you're passionate about, because at this point now you're not sustained by, let's say, family. If in a scenario you are, or you're being like helped, and your parents are, let's say, letting you live with them, or whatever the scenario, right? Once you're on your own, you have to figure out how you're going to navigate surviving in this world.
Mm-hmm.
Surviving might be a more dramatic sense of the word,
But it's like the
I think
truth.
it's fair.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
truth.
like for example, this year was the first year where I had to do like full taxes as an independent creator, because otherwise, in some way, shape, or form, I was always working for a company, and that was really scary. Luckily, I'm in a very like phenomenal position, where I don't have to be so scared, but at the same time, like, no one tells you, or at least from my experience, no one told me how to navigate those things. No one told me how to navigate, what it's going to be like to live on my own, or if I want to travel, or things like that. Like, that just wasn't in the cards. And that's okay. But it means that when people think that, like, oh, like, you're just busy for the sake of being busy, no, there's a lot to think about. There's the whole aspect I always talk to people about of, like, something that tends to lack in most communities is vision, right? What are you going to do 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road? Because people don't like to think too far ahead, because you don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. But I think giving some thought to that stuff is important. And I think especially for youth, when you're kind of in a sense of being protected, you don't really think you have to worry about that stuff. And so the conversations in general are just two very different conversations. Like, I was telling someone, I was like, now I understand what people, like, what adults meant when they're like, oh, I can't deal with kids, or like, oh, like, I don't understand children. And it's literally just because at some point in your life, you do make that total switch in mentality where you're like, wow, I don't have that luxury of just, relaxing about everything. I actually have to really think about what the heck I'm doing. I have to really budget my time so that I'm not wasting it, I'm making every second count. And I think when you're younger, you kind of have that like freedom of like, oh, I already know what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm going to go to class, or, I'm going to hang out with my friends. Like, it's a lot more lax because you don't have this like responsibility on your shoulders to say, like, you are going to be the provider down the road. Like, let's say you want to be have a family. Like, if you can't even take care of yourself, how the heck would you take care of a future family, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think those types of questions don't come up until you're in adulthood.
Mm-hmm. I definitely do agree with that, especially like just adulthood in general, right? When you get in, you just see like the whole perspective. Like my whole thing about life as well is just about perspective as well. Like, for example, let's say you're jealous of someone because let's say they have uh, I guess in our case, let's say they have like 1 million subscribers or whatever, but
Okay.
then or followers or whatever. But then
Mm-hmm.
you start comparing yourself. This is the big part as well, like comparing yourself to X, Y, and Z. But then you need to understand what it took for that person to get to where they're at and the
Yeah.
struggles that they had to deal with as well. And it's also, let's say, in the perspective of financial terms, let's say someone is extremely rich and you're not as wealthy as them, but then you're looking at their stuff and you're like, man, I wish I had that stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
you also need to look at the opposite perspective. What happens if there was somebody who was less fortunate than me? That's extremely important. That's why a lot of people aren't happy, because they're like, oh, I don't have this, I'm not happy. But in fact, you have a lot more things than what other people have. Like if you went to another country, I remember when I went to just like in Asia in general. Once you go to different countries, like for example in my case, I went to Asia, I saw like so many unfortunate people, and that made me really sad. But then that also, at a very very young age, I think it was like 9 or 10, I was like, okay, I need to realize that I have what I have, and I'm really lucky to be in the situation that I'm put in as well, because there's always people worse off, and there's always people better off than you, is pretty much what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, and I can completely see that. And like, don't get me wrong, I do sympathize because like I think everyone in some form experiences the feeling of jealousy, the feeling of like, man, my expectations are so high, but like, oh, my skills or my experience is so low. Like, why can't I do this? Or why couldn't I have, like, common one I hear is this mentality of, I wish I had started earlier, right? Like, you wish you had started when you were like 10, or you wish you had started when you were 16. And I think timing, like people don't give themselves enough slack to accept that, timing's everything, right? At that point in time, you maybe didn't have the mentality for it. You didn't have the experience to even know that existed. It doesn't matter what the thing was, but um, I totally see where you're coming from, because I think everyone, when the game of comparison starts, you're looking at someone's highlight reel, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
only seeing the best parts that they want to show you. And this is so common on social media, right? When it's showing your looks or showing your followers, whatever it is, you can look at it and just be like, wow, that's such a big number. That's so impossible. How the heck could I do that? But you have to remember, that person is a normal person, right? No
Mm-hmm.
one
Exactly.
comes into the world being like, yeah, you know what? I am a pro. Like, even PewDiePie, I really love seeing the progression of PewDiePie, because obviously anyone on YouTube would in general know PewDiePie, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's really like awesome and humbling that you can actually find videos of when he first started. And when he first started, he was sweet and he was silly and he didn't know what he was doing. He had nervousness just like anyone else does. Like, his start is just as relatable as anyone else's start, right? And I think that's the thing that no one necessarily thinks about in that moment, when you're kind of self-deprecating and kind of looking down at yourself, is that you aren't them, and the story and experiences you have are only like raw to you, and that is going to add so much value to people you don't even know need it yet, right? I
Mm-hmm.
always preach on the fact of, your story is your power. Every good, bad experience you've had is going to be so valuable to someone, because there's going to be someone out there that relates to you. We all kind of go into the mentality, I think, at some point in time, where it's like, oh man, am I the only one going through this? And I think if there's anything that people I really admired taught me, it's that there is always going to be someone that your story impacts. And so share your story. Make your experiences original to you. Don't try to be someone you're not, because you're not them. And like, they can be the perfect version of themselves, but you should be the perfect version of you, or not perfect, but best. And just love the growth that happens from trying and failing and doing it all over again 100 times over, because sooner or later you're going to get up that mountain and you're going to be at the top thinking like, how the heck did I get here? And it was just consistency. It was you trying to push through, and always just trying to make the best out of every day.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I just had like a really good conversation. I think it was more. All I remember is one word, like realism. That's all I remember. I just can't remember what I was specifically gonna talk about. But yeah, if that comes up again, I'll talk about it. But let's get into the topic more over of like cancel culture. So what do you think? Um, so what do you think about cancel culture in general?
This topic. This topic is like one where every single time you like approach it, you feel like you're about to dip your toes in the lava.
Mm-hmm.
I think, gosh, there's sides of it that have pros,
Mm-hmm.
but there's sides of it that are incredibly toxic. I think it's a double-edged sword,
Mm-hmm.
because like, um, I think from the perspective of cancel culture, someone can get canceled just from a rumor, and a rumor doesn't have to necessarily be backed by fact for it to catch like wildfire in different communities. And get enough people with radical mindsets together, and scary things can happen. I think I've seen before in the online community in general, where let's say someone is innocent, right? And enough people say they're not, and enough people make other people believe that they're not. You can destroy a person's entire livelihood. You can destroy their family life. You can destroy their relationships. You can destroy how they see themselves. You can bring people to extremes. You can force people into depression. I like, don't get me wrong. There are scenarios where, like, let's say someone is like an actual criminal, or someone is like a predator or something like that, and they genuinely are. those are people you'd want to get out of the community, or you
Mm-hmm.
at least want appropriate consequence if someone has done wrong. But I don't know, cancel culture is just a really scary thing. um, uh, and I think it is like one of those things where everyone has like their own valid feelings about things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Exactly.
but again, it's like when is it too far, and when does your personal bias and sensitivity, once it starts hurting someone else, when is there a boundary where it's like, maybe we need to like, take a second, because I think that once that momentum starts, that ball gets rolling, and you don't know who it's going to hit by the time it gets to the ground. So I don't know. It's a good thing in some ways, but in every scenario where I've seen extreme cancel culture, and this is just the scenarios I've seen. It doesn't mean that I haven't seen good ones, but just with what most commonly I see surface, it's scary. It's like, uh, 1 second someone can be like an idol to someone, and then the next second, like, this identity that maybe someone is like, because like you said, especially in social media, you see a lot of public figures as being, um,
Perfect.
an
Yeah.
opportunity for escape, and they become your safe space, let's
Mm-hmm.
say. So what happens when you turn a safe space for a huge community into, like a lie, essentially, like that they've now identified themselves with this person so much, but then they realize it's just a big lie, or it's made to be a big lie. I like, again, could be true or not true, but uh, I'm just saying in the more general sense of, I see cancel culture surface quite often, but at what point is it going too far? And to that, I can't say,
Mm-hmm.
because every circumstance of it is just so unique
Mm-hmm.
that I feel
Exactly.
like there's no cookie cutter way of saying, oh, this is bad, or oh, this is good. You know what I mean? Not to say
Mm-hmm.
that I'm just trying to be neutral, but I just feel like in this you kind of have to be, right?
Mm-hmm. I
I
think
don't
just,
know.
oh, sorry. What were you gonna
No, no,
say?
no.
Sorry.
No. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh
I was just
no.
doing nothing.
Oh no. I was gonna say, I think my opinion on cancel culture, I do agree with you on the bad side that they do need to be outed and then certain consequences need to take place. But I'm talking about more of like the middle to the okay side. Like here's my thing on people that we make mistakes. This is what people need to realize about cancel culture, and this is the big thing that I want to tell like each person that's being involved in cancel culture. Don't try to act like you're God and that you don't make
Mm-hmm.
mistakes, because these people online, they're like, oh yeah, this person did this person this did this, and when in reality, unfortunately, they're not living like the life that they wanted to, so they want to bring other people down. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, why would you want to do that in the first place? And then in the second place, what gives you the authority, for example, to try to cancel another person when you haven't seen their entire perspective? Like I said, I wrote an entire
Mm-hmm.
paper about perspective. Like you haven't seen the ups and downs. You only see the ups in their lives, but they've never seen the downs. So what gives you the right to judge a person just like that? Oh, you're canceled, when it could be their whole livelihood and you completely mess up their life. And what are you going to get in return? Oh yeah, we finally got rid of this person. And then I'm like, what if the person just was like what you said earlier about cancel culture, when we were talking earlier about something that might have been okay back then, maybe not right now, and they go back to that video. I'm like, probably that person grew and they understand that it's not okay to be talking about that now, for example. So what gives you the right to go back? Oh yeah, we found this clip of you, or we found this of you, and yeah, sure, I made a mistake, for example, but aren't you gonna make a mistake as well? And most, like, not even most likely, you will make a mistake, because that's what life is. And each person has their own flaws, and people like to play God that way and try to ruin other people's lives. And I completely can't stand it when someone who like had to go all the way from the bottom, for example, had to climb their way and dig their way to the top through hard work and perseverance, how they completely just get outed and people disagree with them and they completely cancel them in general, when in fact that it's probably just a little thing, and why would you just cancel them for that? And I think with if you have like a good audience instead of like a very toxic audience, like a very wholesome audience, they'll recognize this and they'll just be like, screw off, you people who are trying to cancel um, our favorite creator. But if you have like a more toxic community as well, that's when problems also arise, like mainly arise because they're gonna start pulling things on you. But yeah,
Hmm.
that's my take on cancel culture.
No, and yeah, like that's very fair and very true. Yeah, and it's something that I found sad because like I told you a little while ago about a creator that I really looked up to, and you know, the thing I admire is that you can see how that creator changed, right? You can
Mm-hmm.
see that they were, and especially with their apology, right? I do think that there's a level of like if you have done like something that truly is really really disrespectful or really really inconsiderate, and you've like hurt a lot of people. I think there should be a certain level of consequences when you're in the public eye, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you are influencing different groups, and you are influencing let's say younger audiences that may be more impressionable. And so you want to be a good role model, right? You want to be a leader in your own community. But what hurt when I saw this creator go is the fact that you could see how much they had changed because they knew that they knew about the mistakes they made.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They were fully aware, and they chose to take every awful thing that came as a consequence of that action, and they chose to better themselves, which is something everyone I think wants to see. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We all want to see
Exactly.
that if someone makes a mistake, there's nothing more validating than seeing action follow that mistake and follow in a positive light. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think when we condemn people who genuinely are trying to change and are trying to be better, it's almost like there's this mentality of like we want to say everyone gets like more than one chance, but is there more than one chance when we kind of condemn and even an apology or even all this years of action to show change is not enough, right? When is it enough? Like when have you um, repaid your debt or paid your dues, whatever phrase you want to use.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's just I don't think there's any I don't think there's any solid answer. Um,
Exactly.
it's just sad. If there's anything that seems to come out of cancel culture, it's just a lot of hurt. It's a lot of people who are hurting other people. There's a lot of people that have justification for what they do and how they act. There's people who maybe are just jumping on a hype train because they relate to what's going on and they want to feel like a hero. There's all kinds of people, right? And just because maybe I don't agree with it doesn't mean that someone else's view is wrong, right? They might have full justification for why they're doing what they're doing, but I don't know. I just don't always think that destroying someone's entire livelihood is the way to go about long term positive change and a long term improvement overall and elevation of community standards.
Mm-hmm. I honestly like. I just feel like cancel culture. I think just I remember certain people who did get outed. I'm not going to say their names for obvious reasons, but certain people like did really deserve to get canceled because of like the
Mm-hmm.
horrible things that they've done. But then at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, there were these people who did like very simple things. So an example I wanted to give, I know he didn't get canceled like whatsoever, but a person who changed, I don't know if you know who Ninja is, for the guy who got
He's
like
part of the Twitch community, right? They,
yeah.
yeah,
So he got big obviously through Fortnite and all that, and he
yeah.
was
Mm-hmm.
a pretty toxic person in terms of like gaming. He would be like, "Ah, you suck," blah blah blah. I'm not gonna say what exactly he said for obvious reasons, but
Okay.
uh in terms of like toxicity and stuff. But
Yeah, yeah.
he did grow from that, which, and then all of a sudden when people were criticizing him for it after he did that, and after he changed, people were like, yo, what happened to Toxic Ninja? And then I'm like, you just told him to
Be
stop
better.
being toxic and to be better, and now you're like, for your own entertainment you want him to be toxic. That's like the double-edged sword that I think you were talking about. Like when is it like okay? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's I think you know where I'm trying to get at here, but
Yeah, yeah.
I can't believe that people would just how do I say this? I can't believe that people would just be like hypocritical in that sense that, oh yeah, we want you to be toxic back for our own entertainment, instead of, oh yeah, we wanted you to be better, now fix it. And then I think that goes to show that not everyone is going to be happy with
Well, you
what you
can't make
become.
everyone happy. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like there is no perfect person. There is no perfect lifestyle, right? It's just
Mm-hmm.
what you in your in that moment think is something you can regard like highly and really look up to. But I think the problem is that like you mentioned, especially with like games or anime, there's a lot of escapism in those communities. I mean, there's the good and bad side of every community, but I've said this before, where like when you enter a community where it's a lot of people going through a rough patch in life, or a lot of people who may be going through really rough times, like take someone who let's say is feeling a little broken, and put them in a situation where maybe finally they're like, oh, I relate to this person because this person's just as bad as I am, but they're successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then see them change, that forces them to look at themselves, right? And sometimes that's a little too much for people, like that reality check of like, hey, maybe these habits aren't good, maybe these are condemnable, maybe these are things that need to be looked at in a new light and changed. If you relate yourself to someone who maybe is super toxic
Yeah.
and then you see them become, let's say, a better person, that can be scary.
Mm-hmm.
It can be scary for a lot of people. And I think when people are scared or when people are feeling defensive, the most common way to act out is with aggression, with a lot of like, uh, kindergarten remarks
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
shouldn't be said, but you would think a child would say it absentmindedly, just because children often run on feelings and emotions, or with an adult you think you'd have like a better hold on what you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think that's the thing, is you really can't, you cannot be everything for everyone. You can only be the best version of yourself. Wear your values on your sleeve, and I think you'll attract the right type of people to your community. But if you do get outed and you do get, canceled culture, yeah, I think that whole thing is a mess. I think it's scary, the idea of even being in it, as someone who's in social media. Like the idea of that coming back around one day is scary,
Mm-hmm.
in any way or shape or form, because you never know what's going to hit you. You could try to be the best person ever, and then someone clips you in a specific way to make you seem like you say something really vulgar out of context or something like that, and you can get outed for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. It just seems like something that just brings a lot of sadness, like. Um, and I think right now, especially during a time like this where everyone is struggling, you know, we need to be lifting each other up,
Mm-hmm.
encouraging each other, not tearing each other down. Because what's that going to add to the overall, right? Is that really going to add anything good, or is it overall just kind of bringing down everyone? you know?
Mm-hmm. I saw someone. I knew someone who was not personally, but like a YouTuber who was falsely accused of something, and then I had like a huge issue with that I don't agree with one of his really close friends. One of his really close friends, instead of going up to him and asking them, "Is this true?" and it was completely false, they just completely unfollowed them or whatever, and then they knew that person for like a very long time. And then I'm like, why couldn't you ask them if what they're saying is true? And if it was, like, do you mind like explaining why, instead of jumping to conclusions just because the media says so? Oh yeah, the media says that this person's this. A lot of people will just cling on to that. Let's say 95%, but hopefully people, like especially people close to you, will be that 5% that reaches out to you. Is this true? And why did you do this, if that makes sense, instead of just
Mhm.
assuming that it's true.
Well, that's what I was saying about cancel culture, is like you don't have to write on facts for cancel culture to happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? No one has to have the facts. You just have to say something loud enough, and if you're above the crowd, you'll be heard, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the scary thing, is like, what can you, like, if you're in the middle of it, what can you really do to defend yourself? Like, you can have all the receipts, etc., and things like that, but if people want to choose to believe that you're a bad person, that's their choice. They've already solidified that decision and that vision of you in their minds. And like, it's the whole thing of, you can't change anyone, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can't change anyone's mind. I mean, pardon me, you can maybe influence a different perspective, but you really can't control anyone, is more what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it's so true. Like, I think a lot of people don't want to directly address the situation with like maybe someone who's going through something bad, because I know one of the excuses I may hear is that, like, oh, you don't want to be associated with that person, because if you talk to them now, you're associated with their issues. But I don't know. There's just so much value in clear communication. And don't get me wrong, everyone has the right to things that they want to keep private. Everyone has the right to things that they'd rather keep to themselves. That's
Mm-hmm.
fine. But I don't know. I feel like people love drama when there's not enough. If there's too much bad things going on in someone's life, they want to distract themselves by seeing someone else go down.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why drama TV shows are so popular. But you are right. Like, there's so much value in just communicating with the person, because when you live in the silence, and I had this situation happen not long ago where, you live in the silence, you create your own version of what reality is in that circumstance. When in reality, had you just talked to the person, you could have dealt with it much, much faster and much, much easier,
Mm-hmm. Instead of like just assuming like what the media said is true. That's a huge thing.
Yeah, and I mean, also from the perspective of being in broadcasting, being on air before for like with general news and things like that. You know, at least here in Canada, like when I got to work with some of the companies that are major newscasters out here, major news companies, um, you have a producer, right? You have the person who like navigates content and decides what is or isn't going to go on the news, right? And
Mm-hmm.
your story is going to get read over, right? You're going to have someone read over and say whether this is the right thing to say or this is not the right thing, or you need to exaggerate this to make it more interesting, or you need to take this away because it's boring. Um, you're censored,
Mm-hmm.
right? I know everyone says like, oh, like I wish the news was more positive. Well, the problem is that positive news
It's
doesn't get any
yeah.
views, and everyone needs to make a living somehow. I'm not saying it's the right or wrong thing, but like, if you were in that position and your livelihood and your ability to take care of your family depended on you doing something, you're gonna do what you're told.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it's the right or wrong thing, but like, uh, I don't know. It's so easy to attack, but I think it's so much harder to think. Like, like you can attack on emotion, and just ride whatever high you're feeling. But I think actually, like, looking at it logically, taking a step back and looking at an overview of the whole situation, and then being able to take your bias out long enough to be able to, if you want to involve yourself, get to the root of what's going on. That takes I don't know, that takes courage,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion.
There's this series that I've been playing on that I've been really invested in. Have you ever watched Danganronpa before or no? Or have you at least heard of
I've
it?
heard of it, but I haven't watched it.
Mm-hmm. I'm obviously not going to spoil anything for obvious reasons, but the whole premise of it is, and this also ties into cancel culture, is that in the whole thing about like in the entire game, at least the first one that I played through, please don't spoil it in the chat if you played it. At least in the first game of what I've experienced, people are put in a situation that's neither good, like that's not like there's no right or wrong answer here. If you put yourself into their shoes, you could have just easily made the same mistake as what they made at that time because of the circumstances that was like presented to them. And then
Mm-hmm.
that's what people don't understand, is that there are certain times where even though something is considered bad or wrong, they had to do it for, let's say, like financial reasons or whatever. But then that also draws the line depending on what it is, obviously. But yeah, it's humans pretty much, and I think you and I can both agree on this, and especially with like cancel culture in general, we're not perfect and we're gonna make mistakes. And if you try to cancel like anybody, just remember that you also make mistakes, and you can't be like a paragon to people that are obviously older than you, and most of the time that are like in adulthood as well, with that they've also experienced the like harshness of reality. And if I'm being honest, I had a conversation with somebody who said that living in the US or like the UK was worse than living in like places like Asia. And then I was like, wait a minute, are you serious? Because
Hmm.
like if you like specifically go to like certain parts of the world, they're looking
Yeah.
at their own perspective, like, oh, life sucks. When they uh I don't want to touch into too many like sensitive topics, but like let's say you have both of your parents. Some people don't even have parents, and people don't realize that. And then
Hmm.
you
It's
need
kind of
like,
like the ignorance is bliss mentality.
exactly, exactly. That they're not willing to recognize that I am also a very lucky person. No matter how unfortunate your circumstance is, you genuinely will have something over another person that would make another person jealous, if that makes sense. No matter how bad
Mhm.
your circumstances, I think that's really huge.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean I do validate on the perspective of like if someone grows up in a certain lifestyle and then they experience hardship that they've never experienced, that those feelings that they have are valid, right? Because maybe quite genuinely they've never seen that perspective. But I also do agree with what you're saying, where I think in a more general sense, we're all told at some point in our lives that you think you have it bad. Well, take a second to look at this person's life and put yourself in that person's shoes, right? um, I definitely think there's so much value in recognizing that hardship comes in many forms, and just because something isn't hard to one person doesn't mean it's not going to be hard for another person, right? Or um, even if something comes easy to you, it doesn't mean that it doesn't come really hard to someone else. I think there's always going to be that sense because there's always going to be something you're not good at, and there's going to be something that you're really strong at. And I think everyone, when they're in their vulnerable state of a weak zone, you have that moment of like self doubt. You have that moment of self deprecation, maybe, um, unless you don't let things get to you, and then that's great. But uh, yeah, I think there's so much value in being open minded in general, and just being receptive to the fact that there may be things you just don't see and don't know, and to at least be open to maybe exploring understanding that a bit better.
Hmm.
Because I think in general, like if there's anything that I think contradicts negative thought and things like that, I think it's gratitude,
Hmm.
right? I think
Exactly,
gratitude
exactly.
is something is undermined, but I think gratitude has so much power. I think the more you get into this thought of like, oh, I'm not good enough, or oh, I wish I had more, etc. I think if you took like a second, and this is an activity I used to do with someone really precious to me, where it's like write down 100 things that you're grateful for when you have that
Hmm.
negative thought,
Hmm.
right? Because by the time you're done writing those 100 things you're grateful for, you don't even remember what you were thinking negative about yourself, or
Exactly.
negative about the situation. Because all of a sudden you have that moment of rerouting yourself and grounding yourself to say, you know, I'm just grateful to be alive.
Exactly.
I'm
Exactly.
grateful to be in this moment. I'm grateful for the fact that I can be, you know, where I'm at.
Hmm.
I mean, where you're at can be hard to look at sometimes, but I think no matter what, there's always something to be grateful for.
Hmm. Okay, so I think that's gonna be it for the podcast because we've hit 2 hours, and I also don't want to keep you for too long, Spica.
No,
But
man.
um,
Thank you so much for having me.
oh, that's my line. Thank you so much for uh just coming over here to just chat. And then I think it was also helpful for both me and you, for me to like learn more about you, and for you to learn more about me. And I also, one of the highs, I did not know you and Hollow were so into Pokemon. This is crazy, honestly.
We're
Like,
Pokey buddies.
if I'm being completely honest, I don't know if I told anyone else, like, and anyone else who just tuned in right now. I'm also going to be having like an individual podcast with like each person. Like, for example, I'm going to be messaging you later, Hollow, wink.
Wink.
that
Flirty
that
smile.
so when I'm like interviewing someone, also they could learn more about that person. So like, let's say, oh yeah, who is, for example, let's say later, if this podcast does grow, they'll say, oh yeah, who's Spica, and who is she really? They can go all the way back to the beginning of the podcast and be like, oh yeah, yeah, obviously it's like what, 2 hours long, but they'll,
Goes so long.
whether they like it or not, that's who you really are. For example, like going back, and they'll be like, oh yeah, so this is who Speaker really is, and then they'll like connect with you more. I think that's also really important, instead of jumping right into like big topics. That was a huge mistake I think I made on the previous podcast. is that I should have probably interviewed like and talked like had a one-on-one talk with each of you instead of
Mhm.
delving into like getting like X and Y and Z amount of people and then putting them onto the podcast, when in reality I think it's really important to just talk to each of you individually, not only to like deepen the relationship between me and you, but then also have the audience realize, oh yeah, what is it? Oh yeah, that oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. Um, that this is who this person is, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So I think that's also really, really important as well. So yeah, thank you so very much for coming to the podcast, Spica. And I'm also really sorry about like all the links breaking because was
No,
it
man,
apparently
dude.
someone told me that it broke. So I'm definitely on the official
No,
podcast
no, no,
thing.
no.
I'm going
Don't
to
even worry.
fix
But
that.
like, no, seriously, this was a huge pleasure, and there's nothing I would have rather been doing. It was awesome getting to chat with you, Justin.
No, thank you for this opportunity, Spica. But also, thank you everybody in the audience for watching for this long. This was really, really good. And honestly, I feel like having this conversation is also very healthy. I think I don't know if this applies to you as well, Spica, but for me, it's also really important to talk to also different types of social media, like presences, for example, and to just engage with other people as well. I think that's really important. Who get where you're coming from in terms of like the social media aspect as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be something that you know way more than me. So getting perspective from other people, I think, is so valuable.
For sure, for sure. But yeah, thank you all. Wait, hollow.
Yum, 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 yum.
Yeah,
Cookie.
yeah, we get a cookie. We get a
Yum, yum, yum,
cookie. We
yum.
both get a cookie.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. So happy. Donate food to me, and I will be very happy. Make my day.
Okay, so yeah, that's gonna be it for the live stream. Do you have any closing words, Spica?
Thank you, everyone, so much for tuning in. Again, Justin, thank you so much for thinking of me, bringing me on, and I just wish everyone an amazing day, and I hope you enjoyed.
I hope you all enjoyed too. Okay, thank you so very much for watching, everybody.